Today I have some fun Christmas DIYs using wood to create beautiful Christmas decorations on a budget. Welcome to the Chic Show. Be sure and check out our host channels, Rustic and Lace DIY, Divine Designs, and Lavender and Lace. I got this cute little sled at a local thrift shop and I got it half price, so it was only $1.50. I'm going to be painting the bottom part with Ash by Fusion Mineral Paint. Roycycled's decoupage paper in North Pole plaids will be perfect for this piece. And on this particular piece of paper, there are two different plaids. You'll see here that I did not paint the top of this sled. The paper was so dark, it didn't seem to make much of a difference. So I'm just using liquid patina. I'm spritzing that decoupage paper and then brushing my liquid patina again on the top. I'll continue in sections all the way down the sled until all of the decoupage paper has been applied. Once the decoupage paper is dry, you can go back around with your finger sander and sand away the excess paper. I do highly recommend waiting till it is completely dry. I tried, but I still had a little wet spot here and my paper tore. But that's okay, that can be fixed, and I'll show you how I did that in just a minute. I took a little scrap piece of the pieces that we sanded away and I made it match up. I added a little liquid patina and just patched that little spot, and you cannot even tell it when it's completely dry. I also failed to mention the little bar across the top of the sled. I used some milk paint that I already had on hand in Barn Red. I'm going to paint this block of wood with chalk paint. It's really more of a dry brush. I wasn't going for full coverage and I only painted one side. I sealed the paint with DIY's liquid patina. Once that top coat was dry, I used IOD's Waltz stamp and black ink and stamped over the green paint. I failed to hit record, but I'll show you the process here. This is not the piece I'm going to add to this wood piece. I actually used resin to cast something from the heraldry mold. I painted it with black chalk paint and used my finger to apply gold rub and buff and used Titebond Quick and Thick to apply the casting to the wood block. I have 3 different wood tags and some scrap decoupage paper. I painted one side of each tag with white chalk paint and cut out the pieces of decoupage paper to apply to the tags. I used DIY liquid patina as my decoupage medium. The paper is a little easier to work with if you spritz it with a little bit of water before using the decoupage medium. I placed my paper down, made a little starter strip, and applied more liquid patina to the rest of the tag and then gave it one more coat on top of the paper. Of course, I continued this process for the other 2 tags using different papers. Once the paper was completely dry, I sanded off the overhang, and using a paintbrush, I poked the holes into the tags where they originally were. I chose 2 scrap pieces of transfers to apply to 2 of the tags, and I left the bird tag as is. I rubbed on the transfers and sealed them with more liquid patina and added a ribbon to each. using recycled decoupage paper called Yuletide Whispers and a leather belt that I thrifted and this wood piece that I found at the Goodwill bins. It's shaped like a tag, and that's kind of what we're going to do with it. I'm going to give the top a coat of Waverly chalk paint in white. As the paint is dry, I'm going to spritz my decoupage paper with water, place it on top of my board, and then I'm going to use liquid patina to adhere this piece down. While that dries, we're going to move on to this tree. This is a resin mold that I poured from IOD's Christmas mold from a year or two ago, and I'm going to be using that Salty Kiss DIY paint, and I'm just going to be dabbing it all over this tree so that I can get in all of those nooks and crannies. Once the paint is dry, I'm going to take some dark wax and I'm just going to be working it down into that tree so that it gets down into those low-lying areas, and then I'll wipe it back with a paper towel. DIY paint does need to be sealed, and the wax will act as a sealer, but it will also darken up my tree and give it a little more depth. I did go back with a gold paint pen and just made some dots in places where ornaments might be, and this just added a little bit more to this piece and made it look like it had lights. Now that the decoupage paper is dry, I'm going to sand away the excess paper. Once again, I'm using a combination of Gorilla Glue and Titebond Quick and Thick to adhere the tree down to the piece. Next, I cut my belt so that I could make this a loop at the top, and the way I'm going to adhere it is not probably long term. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but just for the sake of time, this is what I did. So I folded it in half, made sure that I knew exactly where I wanted it to go. I then drilled a hole through the belt and the wood piece so that I could use something to attach the pieces together. I used a little brass brad and some Titebond Quick and Thick and started in the back to glue this down, and then on the front I did the same thing. Lastly, I went around the edges with a black ink pad just to darken those up. If you love reindeer decor, this wood round sign is for you. This is a wood round from Dollar Tree, and I'm just using Waverly Antique Wax to stain the front and the back. This little reindeer decor piece is also from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to remove that hanger from the top, and I'm going to take it outside and spray paint it with black paint. Once it was dry, I brought it back inside, and I'm using some of DIY's liquid patina iron paint. And for this, you're just going to brush it on, let it dry, and then come back and brush on another wet coat. And while it is still wet, you're going to be spraying it with the Dixie Belle Patina Spray. I'm using green. Next, I had a series of disasters starting by this crackle medium, but I did paint that on the wood round, and then I coated it with ink chalk paint by Waverly. Once that was done, I used the Holly Berry stamp from Candy Cane Cottage and a gold stamp pad, and I stamped on the edges of this project. Added this little black and white bow, and this is the perfect little rustic reindeer decor piece. This project, I'm using this thrifted wood utensil. I'm going to use some watered down Waverly Antique Wax and stain the entire piece. I also dug into my craft stash and pulled out one of these wood tags, and I'm going to stain that with the same watered down antique wax. Now my spoon is dry and I'm letting my tag dry, and I'm going to be using this little coffee filter and cut out a tag, and I'm also going to cut out a tag from some corrugated cardboard. I'll also be using this vintage cookie cutter and this strip of fabric. Again, I'm using the IOD Apothecary stamps, and I'm going to stamp sugar and spice onto the tag. Using that strip of Christmas fabric, I'm going to tie on each of these little embellishments, starting with the cookie cutter. Once I get the cookie cutter on, I'm going to add this little gingerbread candy cane that was from Dollar Tree. I believe it was an ornament, and I'm just going to tie that on as well. Once I get those in place, I'm simply going to tie a bow. I chose not to use hot glue so that I can change this out with the seasons. Now I'm just using some Titebond Quick and Thick to glue my tag together, and then I will use jute twine to tie it to the top. And for just one more little piece of embellishment, I'll add this little Christmas greenery, and this project is complete. If you enjoyed these wood Christmas DIYs and want more easy Christmas decoration ideas, don't forget to check out the playlist in the description box below, along with our host channels. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you're looking for another video to watch, I recommend this one right here. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to share the chic. Bye now.